One
But
must.
you also saw Anselm by Wim Wenders, the new film by Anselm Kiefer.
Stuck out. So this is a slightly more querulous one. So this is like the second film that Wenders has out this year in various competitions.
He has a fiction as well, a
Yeah,
Perfect
drama.
Days.
Perfect Days, which
Yeah,
we didn't
yeah.
see. But in this kind of twilight stage of his career, Wenders seems to have settled out into becoming a kind of Kunstler film documentarian of various people he respects and admires, which is, a venerable, tried and tested route. At Locarno, I saw Barbette Schroeder film about a French painter mate of his. So, it happens. This, however, was, I think, both the wrong subject and the wrong way of approaching it. He chose Kiefer, Anselm Kiefer, who, for the listeners aren't aware, is a blue chip German painter, studied with Joseph Beuys, who is in the popular perception known for having kind of broken the silence around German guilt in the 70s through various, and then had settled
also about the ability of women to paint, famously a couple of years ago.
That's Baselitz.
Was that Baselitz? Oh, sorry, I've confused two equal.
They're in the same generation, pretty much the same.
I'm terribly sorry to Anselm Kiefer for almost slandering you there, but Baselitz does outsell Kiefer, so I don't know if that stands for much.
True. Kiefer is still fairly profitable, but he basically is purveyor of these large, gloomy impasto landscapes, which are cranked out on an industrial scale, often with bits of hay kind of incinerated in the mix.
That's so damning.
Sorry. I do really think
it's kind of accurate though, but it is.
I think exactly. Always great ones, but he has since the 90s cranked out kind of industrial shower kitsch on a really quite alarming scale. Also has endangered a lot of the gallery assistants who've had to work in their spaces through painting lead on them.
Yeah, painting lead, melting, kind of burning, all of these chemicals.
And there is a film about him already by
There's
Sophie
already a
Fiennes.
film about him, exactly, by Sophie Fiennes, which I think is superior to this one.
Over Your City's Grass Will Grow. That's the film, yeah.
This kind of purports initially to be like the Fiennes film, Over Your City's Grass Will Grow, which is a line, I think, from Celan, which is the name of the painting that he takes in the 80s. Which is just to kind of dwell in the wonder of this kind of Neverland style world, this Graceland, this rich man's paradise that he's built for himself in southern France. Do you know where it is? Bussac or?
Yeah, is it something? I thought it was I thought it was central France. It's close to the German border, if I remember. But he's moved subsequently his studio for some, I'd probably presumably for tax reasons.
Barjac, yeah. So it's the kind of world he's created there. With all
it's a kind of Dixieland in a strange way, like
post-war
guilt Dixieland, natural history of destruction Disneyland.
So what I found profoundly irritating about this film is that it kind of uses the toolbox of cinematic effects that Wenders has honed pretty much since Himmel über Berlin. For instance, often this use of this like polyphony of different whispered voices on the soundtrack, which is meant to suggest this interweaving of past and present historical memory, etc., which was is used quite effectively, I think, in Himmel über Berlin. I'm having an expat moment here. What's the title?
Skies over Berlin, or
is it just
called?
Himmel means sky.
Ober Berlin.
Have you started forgetting English words, George?
And German, apparently.
Wings of Desire.
Wings of Desire. Yeah.
Okay. So you remember the scenes in the library, for instance, or on the
where Bruno Ganz is just kind of
on the subway when you have all these voices melting in and out of each other. So here you have this, but they're just kind of rambling, incoherent bits of porcelain or Bachmann, and the film seems to suggest that artistic activity is anchored in the wonder of a child, and about sustaining the child's approach to the world. And to drive this point home, we have a young version of Anselm Kiefer, who is dramatized in various scenes, walking, kind of scrawling in his notebook, or just walking through the room.
It's very like Peter Greenaway and Peter Greenaway's treatment of historical subject matter.
Yeah,
like
exactly. And
it's like quite a hokey device that's used on sort of, it's very History Channel, but it's these like
very
elevated History Channel kind of motifs.
It's very like Arte documentary for like German treatment of culture, cinematically like completely flat-footed. And so it does this. It also doesn't at any point interrogate the fact of like what is sustaining this world, like this world he's created himself. It seems to just be sustained by this man's imagination alone. So we have him falling asleep with a volume of Paul Celan's poems on his chest, and then you have these kind of dreamy like saccades through the enormous warehouse where they're pumping out these paintings. There's no suggestion that these paintings will eventually arrive in some like Frankfurt banker's apartment to be hung over his.
So it's kind of divorced from the
absolutely.
Sort of,
and then
productive economy.
What is bringing the materials in? What are the constituents of success? There's no suggestion that like.
Because the most interesting thing about Kiefer is his relationship, his critique of his romantic critique of industrialization and mechanized warfare, and yet his total reproduction of that at an industrial scale in terms of how he produces his art. That's the interesting, maybe unintended or emergent dissonance at the heart of Kiefer's practice that makes me have a real soft spot for him. And it's weird as well because it did not engage. It's interesting he's focused on Celan because his big concern over the last few years has been like string theory and in molecular biology. He's got all this kind of mad.
None of that came in. It was very much Hum's focus. So we had Celan reading on archival footage, and it also, like, when it lost its way a bit with just the documentation of him in various states of wonder in and around his own work, it began to rely on archival footage, and it only allowed itself to kind of critique the status of this kind of now institution, this untouchable institution of German culture, through the lens of this archival footage, where you actually see that there were various critics throughout his career who were challenging him on the reproduction of particular motifs, but even then it kind of projects them dreamily over his existing spaces.
So it's doing almost this kind of immersive art experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Van Gogh
I think it ended up creating this like sustained fantasy depiction of what of kind of like death kitsch or whatever else, but it didn't it pulled its punches at almost every turn. That's why I preferred the Sophie Fiennes one, which kind of sustains this dreamy mood of wonderment. And I think had it done that, it would have been a more successful.
We also hear, I haven't seen this other film, but in Sophie Fiennes' film, we actually hear a lot from Kiefer himself at his kitchen table, talking quite precisely about his creative practice. And
exactly. There's not so much of this. Instead, you see this kind of lazy emperor just parading around, flinging bits of paint and kind of turning on his flamethrower pseudo randomly to douse different canvases. Plus, his assistants look on.
The emperor has no hose.
Yeah, something like this. When you watch a film like this, you understand what sustains and kind of generates certain misconceptions of like artistry and artistic practice, and how various kind of 19th century dogmas of kind of genius persist in spite of changes in artistic activity in general. It's not that we don't believe in genius; it's just it doesn't look like this.
Yeah.